and welcome to How to Deal When the Shit Gets Real podcast. I'm Rietta, and unfortunately, there is no Connie today, but I'm here with the lovely Robin. And Robin, can you just start off by telling us how you deal when shit gets real, or really just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I live in Colorado. I just moved back here from California. I'm a tarot reader and a mindset coach. I left my corporate job last year, and I'm doing this now full time.
I didn't realize you left your corporate job.
Yeah, that was my dream. And, I worked for a few years on my business and working full time. I just couldn't get it off the ground. And then I hired a mindset coach last year, like the previous year. I worked with him for a couple of months, and then boom, all of a sudden my business took off. So I incorporated that and some self-concept work in with the tarot.
That's awesome. I love that. So how did you get start reading tarot cards? I feel like that's not something that you just start like, I'm going to read tarot cards.
I've always been, I think even as a kid, I've always been drawn to the mystical stuff. I remember going to the library, all the libraries in my area, and taking out all these books. Like I was obsessed with Merlin and King Arthur. And then I moved over to occult books. I've always been interested in it. And throughout the course of my life, I had gone to psychics, I've gone to mediums, I've gone to tarot readers. 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh my goodness.
And my entire life fell completely apart. It wasn't that great to begin with. And then it just went downhill. And it's like I was drawn to tarot because I just kept, let's say, praying and setting intentions that I would find out how I could change my life. And I'm searching. So anyway, I was pulled to tarot readings, right? Like, oh, maybe a psychic could tell me what I need to do. And I would be watching the cards like I would watch other tarot readers pulling cards, and I'd look at the cards and they would be explaining what the reading meant. And I would be thinking, oh, that's so weird. That's not the message that I'm getting. So I bought myself, well, I'm very different from all the other tarot readers too. I bought a tarot deck and I just started doing them. At first, I was forcing myself to do it the traditional way, like everybody else does it, and read the cards the traditional way. Okay. So each of the cards has meanings. And then when you put them together, depending on the surrounding cards, you could have a different meaning. So I struggled with that at first. And then I was like, you know what? Forget this. I'm just going to read and see what happens. And then all of a sudden, I start reading for my family, for my friends, and I'm dead on, like just dead on.
So cool.
Yeah. So then I started to do that, as a side business. And then I got involved with Reiki and healing, became a Reiki master. I think becoming a Reiki master then helped me really hone into my intuitive gifts. Because when I look at the cards, this is why my readings are different. When I look at the cards, I'll be drawn to like a certain symbol or a color, or something specific on the card. And those things mean something to me. So I know how to translate it then.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Have you ever thought about teaching your way of reading tarot, or is it just something for you?
So I'm working on 2 more workshops that I'm incorporating in one of the workshops that I have now. And then I'm going to do, because everybody asks me, like, could you teach me? Could you teach me? So I'm going to I don't know how I'm going to structure it, but I'm going to do a training program.
That would be so cool. I'd love to learn.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun and it's very interesting.
I don't doubt that, because that first chat that I had with you when you were helping me write that chapter, I really got that feeling from you that like it was just something so natural for you.
So I think, and when I just had a book come out, I know you had mentioned that you were getting it. When you read the book, you'll see the things that I had gone through. So what I find in the tarot world, let's say, many of us learn to hone in on that sixth sense, right? So everybody has the five senses. We were because of the trauma that we went through in our lives, we became very skilled at using that sixth sense to feel out if there's danger. So I think my whole life, I was using that skill. I just didn't know that I was. You know, when you get the gut feeling, when you get a gut feeling?
Yes.
Like, oh, I definitely have to do this, or this doesn't feel right. Okay.
Yes.
So imagine that you could just take that, and with very specific practice, you could hone in and just continue to build that skill.
That actually makes a lot of sense when you break it down like that. Because I think everybody has, at least I feel like most people have some sort of gut intuition. We just don't
100%
pay attention to it.
100%. Yeah. Everyone does. Not everyone wants to, and not everyone knows that they could tap into that stuff.
Yeah. So for people that aren't super familiar with tarot, can you give us talk about the different kinds of cards and their meaning?
Yeah. So I'm going to do some videos on this too, and explain the way that I do tarot, because the way that I do tarot and the way that I read it, my process is very different. My gift is I can tap into, let's say, your imagination, and I can see in the quantum field the timeline that you are building based on your imagination, your thoughts, your beliefs. So in my readings, I'll tell you what you're creating right now, and then I'll say, now, is that what you want? And they say, no, I want this. And I tell them how to jump to that timeline. And that's based on the cards. Okay. So each of the cards, I have like 15 different decks here. Okay. Like,
wow, there's that many? That's so cool.
Oh, there's thousands and thousands of decks.
I didn't realize there was that many different kinds.
Yeah. So you have the standard, like the Rider-Waite deck. Okay. In that deck, I think there's 72 cards, and you have the major arcana and then the minor arcana. Major arcana, like, imagine that these are archetypes. Are you familiar with archetypes? Probably in writing, you probably do know the archetypes if you're developing characters, right? So
okay.
like a siren, a rake, I don't know, like a jokester, those types of things, right? So the major arcana represents a cycle and archetypes of what we're going through each day in our life, or every week or month or year. Okay. So it represents what you are today. So if I say, what's coming for me, I don't pull tarot on myself a lot. I create my reality, and maybe once every couple of weeks, I'll pull cards just to see if I'm on track with that reality. Like, I create it in my imagination and create it. And I just use tarot to test to see if I'm in that direction. But let's say I pull the Empress. The Empress, that's the card that I resonate with today. Okay. Every day you could resonate with a different card, though. Some days it's the Magician. Some days it's the Fool. Today I resonate with Empress. So the Empress represents all of the feminine qualities, the nurturing qualities, the mothering skills. So imagine like the perfect mother. Okay. And she just embodies that complete feminine energy. Tomorrow, though, I could resonate with the Emperor. If let's say I'm investing, or I'm handling my finances, or I'm strategizing how I'm going to do something, that's masculine energy. So I might pull then the Emperor tomorrow. Then the next day, maybe I'm off, and I might pull, and I'm just giving you some examples, I might pull the Empress in reverse. And that means I need to get back into my feminine energy. Reversals for me are timing. People read reversals differently.
Interesting.
Yes. Okay. And then the minor arcana, you have like 4 different suits. They represent like the astrological signs.
Okay.
And they will clarify and give more details as to what it's about. So you have 4 different, you have wands, which is fire. So all of the elements. So you have water, fire, earth, and wind or air. And like fire is wands. Earth is money, pentacles. Water is cups and emotions, right? So all of those represent certain things. And then, like I said, when I pull the cards, one, like the Empress could take on a completely different meaning depending on the other cards that I pull around it.
That makes sense.
So I'm basically tapping into you. Like if you came to me for a reading, I would tap into you and the quantum field and tell you where you're at today. And then teach you whatever it is that you need to know or do to get to the reality that you want to be in. And all that is just reprogramming your subconscious thoughts. 95% of what we're creating in this reality is from our subconscious thoughts. So I teach people how to identify the limiting or the negative subconscious thoughts, the things that are preventing them from being in the highest timeline that they want to be in. I teach them how to easily identify them and reprogram them so that they can get what it is that they desire, basically.
That's so awesome. So have the cards ever shocked you though? Have you ever pulled a card and been totally shocked or no?
Probably in the beginning. I think it's almost, I just got the chills. So when I get the chills, it's like I'm dead on. So in the beginning, you're building your practice, you're learning, right. So you're building all of that. So I think in the beginning, if the Tower came out, people get all crazy if the Tower comes out or if the Death card comes out. Again, it depends on what the surrounding cards are, but that doesn't mean you're going to die. Okay. And the Tower doesn't mean your life is falling apart. So the Tower shows a tower falling apart, throwing people out of the tower. Right. So these are major events that are happening in your life. And yes, in the beginning, I would be like, I had cancer. So when I first started doing it, if I got the Death card, I'd be like, oh, no, this isn't good.
Yeah.
And then you develop a relationship and your practice. And then it's just natural now.
That makes it even more interesting that like you're not even surprised anymore. You're like, yep, I knew it.
No. In fact, I just got the chills again. I almost don't need the cards. The cards really just narrow down the images, because I'll get pictures, I'll get actual pictures or little movie clips in my mind. So maybe, and this happens all the time, like right before a person comes on a reading, I do a lot of my readings are via Zoom. If someone's coming on and I'm shuffling the cards, I might get pulled to a certain card as I'm shuffling. Like so the Magician is out. Most times it doesn't matter. Like if I'm shuffling and I look down and I see a card, it doesn't matter. I might be pulled to a certain card. And then all of a sudden I'll start getting like a download of information or pictures. So this happened today. So I was shuffling and I was waiting for the girl to connect. And 2 cards, I got pulled to 2 cards that wanted to come out just while I was shuffling. And one was, well, I'm not going to get into it, but they mean certain things. And as soon as she popped on, I said, are you going through this, this, and this, and this? And she was like, yes. And I said, okay, all right, got it. I already knew, right? Those cards gave me a head start.
Mm-hmm.
And then I knew where she was. I knew what was going to come out. Literally, I said to her, this, and this. Like I named the cards, and boom, that's what came out in the reading.
That's so cool.
And I record them for, for proof. But yeah, I use the cards as just to help refine what I'm getting and to translate it even better for people.
Yeah, it makes it more like tangible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very specific.
Yeah. And we're very stuck on like seeing things and actually feeling like you're a part of what's going on. I think if you just started talking, people would be like, what are you talking about?
Well, there are a lot of, and I can channel too. So I'll get downloads, I'll channel, blah, 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 all of that stuff. I'll watch some people like on TikTok or Instagram or social media. I can tell if they're faking it. I can tell if they're making up things with the tarot cards. And then I could also see people who are like, oh, I just got a download. I have a message. I know when they're like, you could come on and just make up stuff that is going to resonate with a lot of people. Right. So
that doesn't surprise me, honestly, which is sad to say, but it's kind of what social media has become.
Yeah. It's
unfortunately. But you did talk about briefly, like when we chatted before, about affirmations. So can you talk about what are affirmations and what they mean to you?
Okay. So let's say affirmations are beliefs. Okay. So in reprogramming your subconscious mind, you're going to look at two things. You're going to look at your beliefs or the definitions that you're giving to a situation that just unfolded. And to transmute that, to reprogram your subconscious and get it going in your favor. So let's say it's something that you believe is negative. Maybe somebody dumps you, okay? And they say, and they're with somebody else now. So I'll work with my clients. I'll pull their tarot cards and I'll say, here's what you're creating right now based on your thoughts. I will be able to tell them the beliefs that they already have, especially based on the cards. I will tell them the beliefs that they need to change, and I give them tools on how to keep uncovering them. I find limiting beliefs every single day. Every single day I'm uncovering like another limiting belief, and a limiting belief is just something that is preventing me from getting what it is that I want, or preventing me from being the best version of myself. So I teach them, I tell them what they need to change, and I tell them how they could keep going with it. I also do a workshop with my clients on all of this. I teach them all of these tools, so then they don't ever have to come back to me, right? I give them a whole package. Here, now you do it. So part of reprogramming the subconscious. I have so much going on in my head. I'm trying to keep up with my mouth.
I feel that.
Part of the reprogramming are the affirmations, because those are new beliefs. So let's say, so I had a belief in the past that in romantic relationships that I would be abandoned. And between the time you're born and 8 years old, that is when your subconscious is primarily being programmed. You are in a theta state. Okay, you're in a theta wave state. Think of that as like a meditative state. Did you ever like get in your car and drive somewhere and you don't even remember the drive?
Mm-hmm.
That's the theta state. Okay, you're off. That's the easiest way. A theta state is the easiest way to reprogram your subconscious. So all of these beliefs, and then as you're going through life, things are happening and you're gathering up more beliefs. So I had this belief a few years ago that if I fell in love with someone or got into a relationship, that they would abandon me, because that is what I experienced as a child with a number of caregivers that so here, my subconscious had a belief that I would be abandoned. Every relationship for like a 10-year period, every one of those relationships that I had, they left me. I was going through cancer, and the guy that I was with walked out on me because I had this belief, though. Once you identify the belief, and I didn't know until I started to do this work, until I really started to dive in, how do I change my life? How do I transform this? And I started to identify these beliefs. So if you have a belief, let's say I had the belief that someone would abandon me. I want to replace that. Now that I've identified it, I want to replace that with something a belief that is more expansive. Okay. Yes. So I'll coach my people, like my top affirmations, and you or anybody that's listening, you can go to my website and download. I have like my top 300 affirmations for free. You want an affirmation then that is going to be more supportive of what it is that you want. So my top affirmations would be, I'm the prize. I'm always chosen. I'm a priority. Everything is always working out for me. Even when I think it's not, it is. Right. So, and then we have this thing, it's called the RAS. It's the reticular activating system in your brain. This is actual science. And RAS's job is to only, so we're every second of every day, we're exposed to millions and millions of stimuli. The RAS narrows it down so we don't go insane. Whatever I'm focused on, and this is how like synchronicities work too. Whatever I'm focused on, my RAS is going to keep going out into my environment and find evidence to support the belief that I have. So for instance, when I said I had a belief that I would be abandoned, my RAS was constantly going out and super focused on every single example and piece of evidence to support that I'm going to be abandoned, right? So then I would sabotage the relationship or break up with them or whatever. Mm-hmm. So the RAS, and this is like one of the things that I teach my clients, is whatever you focus on is what you're going to manifest. There's evidence to support all theories. Okay. So if you have a belief, you will find evidence in your environment to support that belief. Your RAS doesn't say, oh, Robin has this belief. No, that's not really true. We want things to go her way. And let's replace it with a different, no. The RAS doesn't have a filter. The RAS, your brain just says, it just accepts whatever you tell it. So if I'm focused on, so I have a number, 222 is like my number that I like identify with. Okay. Mm-hmm. My synchronicity, a lot of people follow like numbers. Okay. Because that is now in my subconscious, my brain, and my RAS, that's why I see it everywhere I go. Okay, so that's basically like synchronicity. It's a little more to it, but that RAS is constantly finding evidence to support your belief. So you want to reprogram the belief with something that's more expansive, and then your RAS is going to find evidence to support that. And the more evidence that you gather, the more you will believe what it is, right? So if you're told your whole life you're something negative, right? I don't even like to say it. Let's say you were told something, maybe in the 4th grade, your teacher told you that you were a dummy, or somebody called you a dummy. Mm-hmm. Now you have that in your head. You're focused on that, and your RAS went out at that time and gathered up all of the evidence to support, oh yeah, you are dumb. So now you have the belief that you're dumb. If you came to me, and that's a terrible example, but if you came to me and that was one of your beliefs, I would work with you to develop a new belief and a new affirmation to reprogram that. And the more you work with that new belief, the affirmation, the more evidence you will find that it's true, right? So that's how you change your reality. In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, yeah. I mean,
yeah, there's a little more to it than that, but
Well, that was still very informative and a lot of information and a lot more than I
talk
knew.
all day.
And I'm sure a lot more than our listeners know. So it wasn't for nothing. So do you have a reading of all the readings you've done that's really stuck out the most to you or was like the most interesting, or do you just love what you do?
So most of the readings that I do, so I post every single day on on TikTok, and then it goes out to all of my other platforms. Most of those readings, I don't even remember when I go to edit them and then post them. I don't even remember what came up. It's almost like I'm in a different zone. So before I go to read for anybody, I have to raise my vibration or my emotional state, my state of being. And I do that by thinking of my nephew, who's a German Shepherd. I'll think of an animal, and that immediately brings me into a state of love. So I've now raised my vibration to the highest that I can go. And that like opens up I have the chills. That opens up a channel of information that I could tap into. So I'm tapping into, because I'm in a state of love, I'm tapping into what is important to you and what will bring you into a state of love.
That makes sense.
I'm just channeling. Yeah, I don't like people will say to me, "Oh my God, when you said about the butterfly," I'm like, "What butterfly? I don't know the butterfly." Even if I'm editing them, I'm like, "What? Where did that come from?" I became a Reiki master, and I have a special gift with animals. I could also, let's say, communicate with them because I go up at a high vibration. I'm now my sixth sense is expanded, and I have access to more information. So animals, I just have a relationship with, right? I can get a lot of information because they're also high vibe. They're pure love. Makes sense. Most animals are pure love, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So when I first started doing Reiki, it was so weird. All these pet owners synchronistically I would be in the supermarket and someone would come up to me, we'd start talking, and they'd be like, "Oh, my dog I was just at the vet. He's so sick, this and that." And I'd be like, I'm I'm going through Reiki. I didn't charge anybody. I'm like, maybe I could help you. I don't know. So one day I, again, synchronistically meet this woman, never met her before in my entire life. This is a little lengthy, but you're going to love this. This is how I'm excited. Well, it's also how I get rewarded. Okay. It's not even money. I would just do this for free. So synchronistically meet this lady, and she's so upset. Her dog has like days to live. And she's so upset and this and that. And so I had been working with these animals, and I said, "Here's my card. I could just I'll do a reading, I'll pull cards, and then do a healing. I don't know. Maybe I could help. Maybe I could give you another week or two. I don't know." Like, I didn't make any promises. Mm-hmm. So we set up a time, and I'm on the phone with her. I pull all these cards, and all of a sudden I'm getting like a whole story. There was a priest, and he was wrongfully accused of stealing money from the church, and this and that. And then it created a poverty state for the whole family. Everybody in the family is ashamed. And like this whole big story. I'm like, I said to her, "Do you know any priests?" So I didn't feel that confident in the information that I was getting. Okay. So I'm like, "Well, what about this? What about that?" And I said, there's a person who has passed that is coming through your dog, trying to give you information. I said, "Who is the owner? Who is like who has the strongest relationship with the dog?" And she insisted that it was her. It wasn't. It was really the husband. So, okay. Long story short, here's what happened. Okay. Little probing. And then finally I just blurted out I said, "This is what I'm seeing. Help me make sense of it." That's when she put her husband on the phone. She's like, "Oh my God, you need to talk to him." It was his grandfather was a priest, was wrongfully accused, blah, 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 ended up leaving the church, then ended up getting married later on and having children and whatever. Okay. There was so much trauma and shame. So this is the Catholic Church. This is maybe 50s, 40s, 50s. Okay. There was so much trauma in that family that it then created negative belief systems. So this is all coming through, and there's messages. So there's messages from this dog that are coming through. And then the owner had to make some changes, right? So when I'm working with you, I'll tell you what you need to do. And that dog lived for another 2 years. But
now I have the chills.
But wait, it gets even crazier. And this is why I love it so much. A week or two later, the dog is still alive, and she's texting me like every day. Oh my God, she's eating. Oh my God, it's this. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, listen, I'm not guaranteeing anything. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she reaches out to me and she says, my husband and I just want to thank you. Because you have to understand, they don't have kids. This is their baby.
Yeah.
My husband and I want to thank you. We bought tickets to see James Van Praagh. I was living here in Colorado at the time, in Denver. He is giving you his ticket. He wants me to take you to this James Van Praagh. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's a very famous medium. Okay. World famous. Okay. And she said, so why don't you come over for dinner? We'll have dinner. We want to cook like a nice meal for you. And then we'll go and this and that. Because I wouldn't take any money. They wanted to give me like money. And I'm like, no. I said, all right, fine. Show up at the house that day. I sit down. He's like, oh, now mind you, we're in Colorado. I don't know these people from Adam. They were strangers. He's like, oh, where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. I said, oh yeah, this and that. And I said, I grew up in Pennsylvania. Oh, we're in Pennsylvania. I said, well, Pittston, like Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area. And he's looking at me. He says, I grew up in Pittston. What's your last name? I tell him my last name. He's like, I have the chills. Who's your father? I tell him my father's name. He says, I was best friends with him in high school.
What?
Now, my dad passed away when I was 21. So here, I keep getting the chills. Here I sat for about an hour with this guy, and he's telling me I could cry. All of these funny stories about him and my dad, like their adventures, where they would get in trouble. And right? That was my gift. I would never have gotten that experience. I would never have found out that information if I didn't just say, hey, let me see if I can help you. I'm not going to charge. You know what I mean? Anyway, how crazy is that though?
That is amazing.
Of all the people on the planet.
Right?
Yeah.
It shows you how small the world is.
Yeah. So I'm in Colorado, random city, random people, and we grew up in the same town, and he knew my dad.
That's crazy.
Awesome. I love it. So a lot of those things will happen. And I look at that, chills again. I look at that like my reward for helping people. Right. So I get to experience things that I never would have been exposed to.
That's so amazing. It gives me the feels. And now you've written a book, Awakening the Creator Within. So tell us about your book.
Okay. So when I was going through cancer, I had a year's worth of treatment. And like I said, prior to that, my life was chaos, pure chaos, always. Then I got hit with the cancer. Then my guy left. I plummeted. I was about like this close to just leaving. Okay. Had some experiences and then finally decided that I was going to stay. I said, if I'm going to stay, I have to figure out how to turn this around. That's when I turned to tarot. So I said, I didn't even know where to start. I just went on, like, it was my mission to do everything. I went and did ayahuasca. I've done all kinds of psychedelics, 5-MeO, mushroom, like everything. I've done the Reiki. I've done the psychics, the mediums. I've done everything. I've read all the books. I've watched all the podcasts, all the video. Like I've done it all, gathered up all of this information. And I just tried every single thing that I came in contact with. And then along the way, I had stacks of papers of all of the things that I had found, right? All of the little things. And I made a promise. I have the chills again. I made a promise that if I figured it out, I would share it, right? And teach other people, because my biggest frustration, and a lot of people's frustration, is they're stuck. They have no idea how to get out of it. Okay. Yep. And I couldn't find any one person that could help me. So I gathered up all of this information, and that's what the book is. The book is a little bit of my story, right? So I think the first chapter, the introduction, you'll see I had a very traumatic life prior to this. And then I just go through, I talk about the subconscious. I talk about levels of consciousness. I talk about all of these things. I talk about beliefs. Growing up in a Catholic family, in a coal mining town, and my grandparents were in the Depression. So there is Irish Catholic, Democrat, Depression, blah, 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 blah. There's a whole belief template that I had. I call them belief templates, right? That I help people identify what those are, especially like around money. So I had a lot of money blocks. I had a lot of negative, because my grandparents passed that down. They've passed down not only their beliefs, but also their practices. So the whole book and each chapter is on a certain subject. And then there's activities. I teach you how to like dive into your subconscious and identify all of these things in order to improve your life. If you read the book, you'll automatically just improve your life just by reading the book. You don't even have to do anything. If you actually do the activities. So I don't know if you ever read Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I want to say that I read a lot. I want to say that I did, but it's been a very long time.
Well, one of the things, and this is in my book, one of the things that blew my mind when I read that book is, and he has a lot of scientific data, right? He has a lot of studies and statistics. One of the statistics is if you change one habit, just one, the compounding effect over a year is a 30% betterment of where you were a year ago. That blows my mind. So think about if you change one habit just every month, right? So, and that's what our subconscious beliefs and thoughts are habitual. It's just a habit.
Yep. I believe that for sure.
When you shine a light on something, that limiting belief, now you could let it go. So imagine if you let one limiting belief go a month over a 12-year period or 12-month period. And so that's my life. 5 years ago to now, I couldn't even imagine that I would be living the life that I live today. I couldn't even tap into the wealth, the happiness, the travel, the adventure, the love. Like I had no idea that this even existed. So if you do the activities and uncover these things, you will completely transform your life. And that's what I wanted to share with everyone. So I know that's a long story, but that's what it's about.
I think it's great. I bought it. It's on my Kindle. I can't wait to read it.
Awesome.
I'm excited.
Thank you. I love it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, I mean, aside from the fact that I write, I love to support other writers. I love reading and love learning things like that. Jon Kabat-Zinn was probably one of the first people that transformed my life about mindfulness because I love his books. I don't know if you've ever.
Wait, spell his name. I'm not familiar with him.
Zinn is just Zinn and Cabot is Kabat.
Now I got to go down a rabbit hole. I have to look it up now because I have just become obsessed with it in a very good way.
He's wonderful. My dad gave me his book, I think, when I was in college. Wherever you go, there you are. And I've reread it.
That sounds familiar.
Many times since then.
And that's very true. I got the chills again. That's very true because I've moved around the country. I ended up after I did ayahuasca and healed. So I'm cancer free. Everything's all good. After I healed, did ayahuasca. I came home from Costa Rica when I did ayahuasca. And completely, I said, I'm selling the house. I'm selling everything I ever owned. I sold sold or donated like 95% of anything I ever had. I said, I'm moving to Colorado. I had to move, but you still take yourself with you.
Yep.
Okay. So I knew I needed to take myself out of the environment and I just needed to focus on me and change my beliefs, change my habits. Because if I didn't do that, I could have moved to Colorado and I would have created the same old.
Yep.
So,
same atmosphere.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, it's a great book. I'm very thankful that my dad gave it to me. And yeah, like I've said, I've reread it many, many times.
I have to check it out now. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. And is there any like final messages, final advice that you want to leave with our listeners?
I want to mention I am working on a fictional series that will incorporate everything that I teach. So look for that to come out. I'm working on
excited.
That project.
That sounds awesome.
The first one should be out this year. I have it like all over the walls. I have it like ready to just sit and type. So the books will be it'll almost be like a practical application, but a very suspenseful thriller, right? So you'll be able to see the skills, how you develop these things through these characters. I'm so excited to do this.
It sounds amazing. I can't wait for you to do it.
Yeah.
And of course, if anybody wants to connect with Robin, she is Life Mastery with Robin on everything, on all her socials, and her website is also the same, lifemasterywithrobin.com. And thank you.
Email too.
I love that you kept it all the same. Smart. Good marketing.
It was great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us. Well, I guess just me. I'm so used to saying us because Connie's usually here. Thank you for being with me. Say hello to her. I will. And this is how to deal when the shit gets real, guys. Thank you for listening and be sure to listen every week. And we love you guys.